and time on a silver table. Is my jaw wired shut?
Good evening, everybody. It's Nick here. It's been quite a while since I last did. Shut up, Chip. Since I last did a video review, and I'm very, very happy to be able to do one from a series that I absolutely love. I was a little bit hesitant going into this because horror movies have a bad deal, and there's a reason they have a bad deal. Usually they're crap. A couple of them stand out, like A Quiet Place, which was absolutely phenomenal and really did get the heart beating when you were trying to keep it quiet because you just didn't want to make any noise. So this evening I'm going to be looking at the brand new Netflix series called The Haunting of Hill House. Now this is a sort of reimagining of the 1959 novel of the same name by Shirley Jackson, which looks a lot at basically damage done in youth can manifest in certain ways, and obviously taking it to the nth degree by adding it into a horror, into the most haunted house in America. Now, this is like I say, it's a sort of adaptation of that, and it's very, very well treated by Mike Flanagan. Now, Mike Flanagan's done a couple of other movies which haven't been that great, like Oculus and a few other these teeny kind of hits and miss, usually miss, horror movies. So I really didn't expect him to be able to bring a level of, I don't know, subtlety and skill to this, but he really, really has. Now, the series, and I'm just going to say pre-warning, this I will go into more detail than the actual article that this video is going to appear in. In that article, I don't even talk about the timelines that are in this, okay? So that is the quick first spoiler. I'm going to go a little bit more deep. I'm not going to tell you, of course, anything that you won't have picked up in the first trailer, which I didn't see, I've heard of. I watched the first teaser, and yeah, okay, so as much as you can get from a trailer, I won't go any further than that. So yeah, basically this follows a family of 5 kids, obviously a mother and father, over different timelines. Now, in the book, I think there were 2 different timelines in the book. I'm pretty sure there are more than 2 timelines in this movie. It's a little bit like Westworld to a certain degree, though in Westworld you never were sure exactly which timeline you were jumping to. In this, it's pretty obvious because you've got a young kid, you've got a older kid of the same person, and yeah, so you're jumping between events that took place in a house 20 years or 25 years before, and the events that are taking place right now, which basically you sort of start in the first episode with the past. It then jumps backwards and forwards, I would say, every 10-15 minutes after major events happen in the past that definitely affect them in the future. So as I said earlier, the theme in the original book was about sort of not abuse, I suppose you could say abuse, but it's more about the damage and the nightmares that you cause by not sorting out damage, or not by looking at damage, not by dealing with events that have taken place in you, sort of very negative events that have taken place. So this obviously is projected onto a horror story taking place in a haunted house, as it were. The reason that this stands alone and quite separate to a lot of other movies that have tried to do this, in particular Insidious, which I kind of like the first one. It was quite scary up until halfway through. Yeah, I mean, those don't really go too much in depth. It's more just, let's look at the fantasy realm. This certainly does. Not to say that there are not horror elements in this. There certainly are. But this is definitely more of an investigation into trauma. And like I said earlier, if you're traumatized as a child, how that's going to affect you in the future. And I think they do a very, very good job in that. So I'm going to start just by talking about the actors first before I get in a little further. And there's quite a large cast because you are dealing with different timelines. Now, usually I get a bit irritated with children in horror movies, not just, well, I kind of in general in movies. There can be good movies for that. Things like Lost in Space works very well with young kids. That kid did irritate me. But in horror movies, there's a genre where if the kid doesn't pull it off convincingly, you're not gonna really get engrossed into this. And I can safely say that this scared the hell out of me. There are a lot of very long build-up tension moments that just work very, very well. A couple of cheap scares in the first episode where you think something's going to happen, but it's someone lying down or someone dropping a bag. But I think they did it on purpose to sort of like wink at the audience and say, we know you're watching, kind of story. And as it gets on, as the show goes on, there's 10 episodes, by the way, so it's about 10 hours. It certainly does ramp up the frights and the thrills to a point where I think it was episode 5, I think it was, where something happened and I quite literally went, shit, which I don't usually do. I don't really speak out loud. I might feel horror or even, sort of wince a bit, but I don't often say bloody hell and actually say something out because I can't help it. I think the only other time this has happened was with A Quiet Place. So this will definitely elicit a lot of jump scares in some people, and I'm pretty hardened to the horror scene because I've watched so many horror movies, and sadly, I would say 3/4 of them haven't really been worth going back to. Again, the actors in this are fantastic. In particular, Violet McGraw, who's the young Nell. Nell is kind of the central figure to the majority of this of the show. But as I said, her counterpart, the young version of her, is just brilliant. Not only is she absolutely cute, she's adorable, but she really does know how to pull off horror. I don't know how they did it to her or what weird dreams that kid must have had after the filming of this, but she is absolutely phenomenal, as are all the actors, as a matter of fact. They bring a game to this that you really do need. And as I said to you, because they are dealing with trauma, you have people who are traumatized in different ways, and the trauma is manifested in different ways. And I will go into a little bit of that. It's not really spoiler territory because you can probably get it from the blurb. I think you can actually on Wikipedia. Sorry, if you just type into Google, you can see it, sorry. But certain people are sort of lashing out at the world in certain ways. One person's, a drug addict. Another person is a very, massive control freak. That kind of stuff. I'm not going to go too far because some of the stuff is quite related to the actual events of the beginning of their lives. And I think that they did a very good job in that because it is some very heavy stuff here. It's a drama through and through, as well as being a horror, which I didn't expect, because usually you have a horror, maybe it's the husband not believing the wife, etc., which are the tropes that you will find here too. But this goes into a lot of depth in particular in the future, looking at this, like I said, the trauma that they have been through, which I haven't really seen much of. I mean, you've seen a couple of things like Poltergeist, where things have happened in the past, but they really don't show you, massively in depth. And again, this is one of the reasons why I love Netflix and why I love, being able to sort of binge watch 2 or 3 episodes a day, is that you're able to sort of watch these characters grow, and you really can in a format like this, in a medium of 10 hours. I think some episodes might even be longer than an hour. You really do get to sort of like the characters. And I have to say that for the first time ever, at the end of the series, I really do miss them. I really got to bond with maybe 1 or 2 that didn't actually, but the majority of them I really, really liked. And it kind of felt crap to sort of say goodbye at the end. So yes, that was the actors. Okay, let's go into this whole timey-wimey kind of thing. As I said to you, we kind of have seen that in Westworld, which tries to do it in a very hidden way. It doesn't do that in a hidden way, okay? So it's pretty obvious that you're jumping backwards and forwards, and they do it very, very well. When you see something that's happening in the past, something traumatic happening, you can see why the person's acting like that in the future. And this is a very sort of family-centric show where people are interacting off each other. I have a very large family myself, and I can see I've got 5 brothers and siblings, brothers and sisters. There's about 5 of us, 6 of us actually, and you can see how you get on with one particular person. I forget, for example, there's a twin sort of relationship between one boy and one girl. They actually are twins. One was born a minute and a half before the other. So you have this family dynamic in there too, as well as the parenting, etc. So running a family of 5, looking after a family of 5 is never easy. So whacking a haunted house, it's just going to make things really, really difficult. So yeah, I have to say that was really, really great. The timeline stuff I really loved. It was really, really lovely to be able to jump in the future and go, okay, yeah, I'd probably act that way too. So let's go down to the sort of directing again. And like I said, this director, he's done quite a few movies beforehand, but this Mike Flanagan, I think we're going to have to keep an eye out for. As I said, Stephen King calls this movie near perfection. I mean, near genius, or something along those. What did he say? He says close to a work of genius, and I have to agree. The more I think about it, the better it gets, and I want to go back. So there's a couple of levels we can look at while talking about the director and the story. Sorry about this chair, it's terrible. And one of those things is the actual directing itself. He's very competent as a director in this. There are no wasted shots. As a matter of fact, he uses each particular shot so well that you need to go back and watch it again. It's like watching Westworld again. You'll pick up things in the background. And as far as he is concerned, he's done a lot of horror movies, so there's a lot of Easter eggs in this, referencing his other horror movies. Even the actors, one of the actors was in E.T. There's a reference to E.T. in one of these scenes. I'm certainly not going to tell you which one it is. But he reckons that he's placed between 8 and 10 to 12 ghosts per episode, some even more than that. And watching the first time I watched it, I didn't know that. I didn't read anything about it other than the spoiler trailer that I saw at the very beginning. And then my friend Andre, who actually finished this before me, he said, "You do." I was like, "No, no, 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 shh." But apparently there are that many ghosts. So it's one of these kind of shows you can keep your eyes out. And I noticed a few as well. I even took video footage actually of episode 6 and showed it to my friend. I said, did you notice this in the background? No, I didn't, he said. No, he didn't. But again, just going back to the director and also referencing this particular episode, and there's no spoilers coming, trust me. It's the way that the director did it, the sort of technique that he used. Now, we've all seen Quentin Tarantino and other directors use the long take. You know, we're talking about a floating camera or even a static camera that doesn't cut. You know, you're not having something that stops and then jump through to another scene. Now, there are other directors out there that do very clever things where it looks like it's one floating scene, like, for example, Birdman with Michael Keaton. I forget the director's name, which is really bad of me, but there's a lot of clever ways of, making someone's back brushes past the lens, which is actually a cut. Then they can do what they want. Now, this is he pulls together, I think, about six let's say, packets, or I suppose scenes, where they are just one continuous shot. The first one in episode 6 is, I think it's 15.5 minutes long, and that's dealing with a lot of characters, not just one or two talking. You're talking about 5 or 6 characters here, people coming, people going, camera constantly moving around, and that is just brilliant. I loved it, and the way it ramps up tension, the way it makes you as exhausted as the characters too, and then jumping from that into another scene, into another scene, into another scene where a very similar thing happens. It really, that he knew what he was doing here. So absolute kudos to him and the team. Very well done. Also looking at the sound score, brilliantly done. Very, very pervasive throughout, but not too overpowering. Some horror movies, they ramp the music up so much you start giggling because you know something bad's going to happen. But this, I think they did a very, very good job of that. And the sound quality as overall was very good, because sometimes Netflix sounds a bit weird, but this was actually very, very good. I didn't have any issues with understanding characters. So that's that. Okay, and this is quickly talk about how scary it is. I would say the first 3/4 of it are pretty scary. Like, there's no spoilers, just to sort of give you a level of how it ramps it up. Episode 1 has maybe 1 or 2 scares in it, and then it progressively gets worse up until a certain point where it kind of slows down, and then ramps itself up again. So, I mean, as a scare factor of, it's difficult to try and choose what is a 10 these days, but I mean, I thought The Conjuring, what was it? Annabella's Creation, I think it was, or Creation of Annabelle, or something like Origins of Annabelle, whatever. That had quite a few very scary moments in it that sort of kept your breath being held from the horror element. Whereas a film like A Quiet Place is more because you're just tense about something happening as opposed to being terrified of what's on the screen. This, you're terrified of what's on the screen, and you're also getting the tension of what's going to happen next. So very, very well done there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the negatives. I can see I'm waxing lyrical for 13 minutes now. Sorry about that. I would say some of the negative things are maybe the inconsistencies in the way that characters react. Some characters will freak the hell out about a ghost, and I freak the hell out about it too. Whereas another one will sort of be like, and it would, it's gone, it's forgotten about very quickly. So I suppose you could maybe get away with saying this because of the trauma they've experienced beforehand, and this other one hasn't as much, but I don't think so. I think there was just a little bit of inconsistency going on there. I think some parts of episodes were also inconsistent as far as the way the tension was underlying in the background, like the constant tension. Sometimes it sort of fell, and you actually felt it was a little bit funny in some parts, and it was like, well, was this deliberate or not? There's also a few narrative, not plot holes, but things that you would expect to happen that don't. By the director's admittance, from his interview on the final episode, I'm not going to give you, of course, any spoilers, but Flanagan actually said that they did have in mind a full sort of explanation as to why things were happening, and there is very little explanation. In one way, that's great, because it's nice to not have the thing spoon-fed to you, but at the same time, I think it's lacking so much so that it's not so easy to understand exactly why certain things are. I think I kind of have an idea with what happened, but I might be completely wrong, because I'm just, as I say, sort of hypothesizing what might be going and really extrapolating a lot. But as I say, the director did want to do something. He couldn't do it because of time and because of money. So there was a reason it was left out, and I think you can feel that it was left out. But that said, this is a show that you can watch in its entirety. And also, like I say, just a very well-rounded show. So anyway, I'm going to stop right there. I highly recommend going to watch this. I was thinking about giving it an 8.5 earlier today, but the more I've been talking about this and the more research I've done, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. For a horror movie, that is a huge, huge accolade, I think, from anybody. I would have definitely given A Quiet Place a 9, maybe even a 9.5. But this, it's 10 episodes, remember. This is a long, stretching thing. It's not tense tension in an hour and a half. This is very, very good family drama. You feel for the characters, you certainly feel for the children, and the underlying messages, there are so many. It's actually, you want to go back and watch it again. So yeah, absolutely 9 out of 10, definitely worth watching on Netflix. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and see you soon.